The reference of God depends on revelation, and the Muslims just pick it up. They borrow it and take it over from the
Yeah,
Jews and the
and then
Christians.
they
So I don't have
leave that
any. I
revelation.
have no
It's the
natural
Trinity.
theology
The
whatsoever.
Trinity is the
I've
God
got
of the
no
Old
natural
Testament.
revelation in this
The
project. So
Trinity is the God of the Old Testament. That's why David worshiped Jesus. And I think in your last stream you said that David didn't worship Jesus. Is that correct?
not by that name. Did
He
he?
didn't know
Did David
Yeshua.
know? Did David ever mention Jesus? Did he mention the name
Yeshua
Jesus?
appears in the book of Zechariah. It's Yeshua that appears. You didn't know that?
And you think he was referring to a first century Palestinian Jew? Huh, Jay? Do you? Huh?
You don't
Do
think
you? Huh?
that Jesus is the Son
You
of
didn't
God in the
realize
Old
that?
Testament?
You didn't realize that
Look at this
Jesus
guy
lived
melting
in
down. He
first
doesn't know
century
that the Old
Palestine?
Testament. He
Oh
doesn't
my
know that the
God,
Old
he
Testament
doesn't even
teaches
know
that
that
Jesus
Jesus
is the
lived
answer.
in first
Listen,
century
you sound
Palestine.
like a
Oh
demon,
my
dude. You
God,
sound
dude.
possessed.
Who even
Jesus
is
is
that?
the
Oh,
God of
well.
the Old Testament. You didn't know that?
Yes, he is. Amen, brother.
Did
Amen.
did
Praise
Abraham?
God.
Look at this guy
So
acts like a
what?
demon. You're
So what?
possessed, dude. Did
So what?
Jesus eat with Abraham?
Probably. So what? So what?
Probably. You don't know what happened in Genesis? You don't know? Probably.
You don't know? You don't know? Just
You're
make your
not familiar
point.
with
Make an
Genesis
argument. This is
where there's a
boring.
meal?
You're boring. You're boring.
So all
Make an
this is all you
argument.
have. Look at this guy.
Make an argument.
The
This
argument
is
is that
boring. I
your
came here to
natural
evaluate
theology fails. All he
arguments.
has is talking over me. Look at this guy.
I don't have
Natural
natural
theology
theology.
fails. Look at you,
I
man.
haven't,
You act like
nothing
a
that I have
demon, dude.
said, nothing that I have said hinged on any natural theology. You're full of straw men, red
No.
herrings. You're a
You said
feast
in
of
your last
fallacies.
stream, that David didn't know Jesus. You said David didn't know Jesus.
What
Not by
difference
that
does it
name.
make?
Not as a
It
first
doesn't.
century Palestinian Jew. And also, so what?
Jesus is
What's your
so you
point?
don't believe that you don't believe he's the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament?
What's your point? Make an argument.
You don't believe that Jesus is the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament?
Of course
What
I
if he
do. Of course I
is?
do.
Okay, so
So what?
so Jesus says that Abraham believed in me, right? In John 5?
Yeah, so what? Yeah, so
So then
what?
it's Jesus and the Trinity in the Old Testament. You were wrong.
Yeah, so, no,
Yeah.
false. That doesn't
Which one
follow.
is it?
It
So it's
doesn't
not the Trinity
follow.
in the Old Testament.
But,
So it's not?
okay,
What are
here's
you doing? What is this?
$1,000. I'll give you
Is the
$100
Trinity
right
revealed in
now.
the
I'm
Old
gonna put this
Testament, man?
in
It's a simple
escrow.
question. What are
If
you
you
doing?
can make a syllogism, if you can make a
Is the
syllogism,
Trinity revealed
you
in the
got
Old
no
Testament? Stop
arguments.
ignoring the
You got
question.
no
Stop
arguments.
deflecting. Is the
I
Trinity
said
revealed in
it
the Old
is,
Testament?
yes.
You're
Of
sure it is?
course it is. So what?
Okay,
So
so
what?
when Islam picks up that revelation, it's no longer that God.
Uh-huh.
Why would that follow?
Why not? What the hell are you talking
Because
about, dude?
Islam is
What are you
predicated on
talking about?
rejecting the triad.
So
So
what? This is a non
And it's
sequitur.
not the same
They can
reference
refer
anymore
to the triune
explicitly.
God without knowing that God is triune, just as Lois Lane can refer to Clark Kent
It's
not knowing he can fly.
explicitly
When
rejecting the
Lois
triune
Lane
God.
says
The
Clark
religion
Kent
is
is a weakling,
erected.
she's
The
referring to a
religion is
person
erected
that she has
on
a
the
day rate belief
rejection
All right,
of.
about
guys. Hey,
What does
in
that say
relation to
right there?
this
What does that say to
topic.
Cameron, by the way?
Good
Is
God. Can we
Dr.
mute this
Trent
clown?
is Dr. Trent okay
Cameron,
with discussing
can I
dogmatic
call
teaching?
him?
That's what the text
Can
says.
I
Yeah, he wants me to be
can
muted
I
because he
call him?
won't. Because I asked Cameron this question right there in the DMs.
What state are you in, Jay? Jay, what state are you in?
I'm not doxing myself to your idiot ass. Shut up.
Well, I can't find you by knowing what state you're in. I want to know
I'm
how
not
far
giving
it
you.
would be
You
to
don't need to know
travel.
anything about me. You don't need to know anything about
All
me.
right,
Would you be
Jay,
willing
no,
to travel to Texas?
Jay, I said that we did
I'm not
Would you be
discuss
willing to
that.
travel to Texas?
I'm not meeting you in
Would
person.
you be
Are
willing to
crazy?
travel to Texas if I paid
No,
for it?
I'm not going anywhere near your ass. Are you serious?
Do you have any boxing experience or
So you want to
mixed
fight?
martial arts or anything like
let's
that?
not let's
So
not
this
do
guy
that.
wants to
Let's try to stick to arguments. Let's try to stick to the
So
debate
he
topic.
doesn't. So I
I'm
asked
just-
specific. Look in the DMs. The DMs. I asked specifically that Dr. Trent talk about magisterial statements. Cameron, you saw that I put up, and now he doesn't want to talk about it, and now he wants to fight.
So I don't think there's any limitation whatsoever on the sort of suppression or maligning, as it were, of any view just because they share the same view of God.
Well, how could the referent be a demon and at the same time be the true God?
It's
No, I
not.
said
The
they could be
claim is
both.
just that there are multiple. Yeah, the claim is just that there are multiple referents, right? They worship more than one entity.
Who? Muslims?
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
imagine that the claim there is historically early Muslims, at the transition into Islam from Arabian polytheism.
Yeah.
There was presumably a transition period where they're both worshiping the true God and their pagan deities who might well be demons.
This isn't the transition period. This
Just
is well
like
into the
just
Middle
like the
Ages.
Jewish, just like the
No,
Jews
no,
did.
But I don't
But
grant that
that's
Jews.
referring to the
I don't-
religion.
I don't
the
grant that
quotation
Jews.
is from the
Christopher,
Middle
go ahead.
Ages. Sorry,
This
the
is
quotation
well
is from
into
the
the
Middle
history of
Ages.
Islam. It is not early Islam. The 1200s is not early
Citation
Islam.
needed. Citation needed. I
The
mean,
citation was given in my opening statement. The medieval councils that I referred to. Do you want me to bring them back up?
You're more than welcome to. I concede that the quotations are from the Middle Ages. I'm questioning what period those quotations are referring to in Islamic history.
Are you familiar with Islamic history?
Not very much. That's why I'm asking the question.
Okay. Now I know Trent is. So let's.
I am very.
Right.
By the way, does it seem a bit bizarre to say that though? I mean, if obviously we have a quote here that's saying that they worship demons, to simply go, well, they might have actually changed, and that's not a great argument, wouldn't you think?
Well,
I mean, you'd
wrong.
have to have more substance.
He's factually
It's not
wrong,
an
but
argument.
it's not early Islam, first of all, so that's factually wrong. Secondly, it's the Pope himself saying that they worship the demonic, which is equivalent to the argument. It's equivalent to the argument that Paul is making when he says that the things that the pagans and the infidels worship, they sacrifice to demons. And Paul says that that's what infidels do. The Pope consistently throughout the Middle Ages, many popes call them infidels.
Okay.
Yeah, because they don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe in Christianity. They are infidels.
Yeah, and what does 1 John 2:22 and 23 say if you don't believe Jesus?
Your father's the devil.
What does it specifically say in the text? You don't know? Let's go to that. Do you want me to go to that?
In Greek or what?
Hold on. First of all, I would like you to
in the
show
Greek,
us where in that.
You can put up
I'd like to see where in the original quotation that you just had up it says anything about which period of Islamic history the Pope in question is referring to.
He's referring to calling a crusade about present day circumstances. Urban II, you didn't know this?
But that doesn't mean that he's not faulting it for its origins. That just doesn't follow. It just doesn't follow.
They are demon worshippers. So you're trying to change it to make it what it's not saying. Look, what does 1 John 2 say there?
No.
What does 1 John 2 say? What is 1 John 2?
The claim, I literally can't see it. The claim here is that Muslims do worship demons. Well, there's nothing about. If we just stick to the logic of it, I mean, I think the history is interesting.
It's not logical because if they worship demons, then the referent isn't the Father.
No, you're missing the point, Jay. The point is that any person, Muslim or otherwise, could, just like the Jews did at times, worship both the true God and demons. So it's just a logical non sequitur from they worship demons to they don't worship the same God. That's the simple point. Nope, that's it. Nope, that's it. That's the simple point. Nope. It's a non sequitur.
That wasn't what I argued. My argument is that Vatican II causes the ambiguity by saying that Muslims adore the one true God and know him. That ambiguity leaves it open as if that worship is accepted and that it is a genuine pipeline to God, and it is not, because as 1 John 2 says, if you deny the Son, you do not have the Father. And so Islam is predicated on...
Do not have the Father. Have and refer to are totally different relations. This is just not...
You're just making
you need to cut the...
It means you don't have the Father. You lose the Father. all heretics lose the Father. You're saying no. This is basic Christianity.
Have
You
and
think
refer
how
to.
did Basil write
Have
about
and
eunomius?
refer to.
How did Basil write
What do
about
I
the
think.
eunomius? Did Basil think the
what do you mean
eunomius
by
What's
had the
what do you
what's Father
mean?
Anais trying to say? What's that, Father
Also,
Anais?
so in light of what you're saying too, I'm sorry to be a nerd and bring it back to causal theory as a reference, but I'm sure you'll appreciate this. So let's suppose I grant you that maybe there are multiple demons that they're worshiping, but doesn't that, let's suppose one of the things that you said is that context and causation, so a causal theory of reference as far as fixing the referent. If they're worshiping demons and the revelation to Muhammad comes from a demon, which by the very admitting that they're worshiping demons, at the very least, is possible, wouldn't that actually fix the referent to not actually be the one true God? Isn't that possible according to causal theory of reference?
The referent of
I
what?
don't think so.
Okay, well, that's
So
good that you
if
don't
the
think
devil
that's really good.
came and revealed to Muhammad the revelation that he received, and he thinks or calls it whatever, because again, this is not a rigid designator. This word can mean multiple things in multiple possible worlds. You're saying that causal is not enough to fix the referent to something else?
Well,
Why
no,
would it?
that's it. I mean,
Demons. Oh,
the
sorry,
point. The
sorry,
point is
Trey,
that
can I,
even when Satan refers to God, Satan talks about God. He's referring to actual God. And so, even if a demon is behind the writing of the Quran, it doesn't change the fact that the word Allah refers to God. There's just
Does
no.
Vatican II say
There's just
worship
no
and
connection
adore?
there. There's no
Does
connection there.
Vatican II say worship and adore?
What's the question?
Does Vatican II use the terms worship and adore?
Probably lots of times.
Why are you eating on? That's completely disrespectful to eat.
Wait,
in a debate.
I don't get this. I need you to explain this to me. So if the devil appears to you and says, well, I'm actually God, and you're saying, given that causal theory of reference, we're still,
No.
doesn't
I'm
matter,
saying
you're still going to...
I'm saying no. I'm saying if the devil appears to you and says, "Look, God is lying to you. You shall not surely die if you eat of this fruit of this tree." That even though he's Satan and he's misleading you and leading you into damnation, when he says God, the word, it still refers to the one true God.
Yeah,
I actually think
reference
the
is not
example
the
works
debate. It's worship and
totally
adore.
against your view.
Worship
It
and
actually helps
adore,
our
dude.
view.
Stop distracting and playing games. Worship and adore
what,
is the debate.
so if
Who
I can,
you?
What are you laughing at?
if I can,
Worship and adore. Is that equivalent to no?
That's not even a sentence. What's your sentence? Make a claim. What
Once you
is the
stop
claim?
smacking
Those are
apples, why don't you
phrases.
stop smacking your food in a debate?
I'm waiting for a debate. The debate requires an argument. What's
Worship
your
and adore
argument?
is the
I put
text
up
of
a
it. You're
syllogism.
literally
okay,
I
not
put
going to
up
address
modus
what
ponens.
Vatican II says.
Where's
You're
your
a joke, dude.
argument? You're just saying
let me,
words.
Vatican II
Just
uses the
words.
term
introduce-
worship and adore. Look at this. This guy's having a meltdown.
what is the,
What's the
Worship and adore
sentence?
here,
is the text of Vatican II. So
hold on,
you're
hold on.
arguing about
Let's
knowing
get
God
let's
that
get
you knowledge
Christopher.
of demons. Stop interrupting
Let's get
me, man.
Christopher. Let's get Christopher in here.
So-
He hasn't had a chance to speak in a while.
So I think this is going to be very helpful, right? So this is a question for Jay. I think he's right to point to, okay, right, so the resolution is, do Christians and Muslims worship the same God?
Yeah, the very thing that this idiot on the top is ignoring and acting like it's not an argument. The question is worship and adore. That's the terminology of Vatican II.
Okay, so what...
1 John 2 says you lose the Son and the
let me
Father when
finish.
you deny
Let
the
me
Son.
finish. You got to let me get the question out, okay?
He asked me for an argument, Thomas. I'm happy to
What
let
is-
you finish.
What is the gap between reference and worship or adoration? In other words, if I can succeed in referring to the one true God, what would then prevent me from worshiping or adoring that one true God?
Denying the fundamentals of who that deity is. So just like when we say that in a relationship, I know my wife, that's different than a conceptual knowledge about my wife, right? We all know this, that the Bible speaks this way. I could say that when I debate Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, right? Jake knows quite a bit about Orthodox Catholic Trinitarianism, either side. And so we could say Jake knows about the Trinity. And in that sense, he knows the Trinity. But he does not know the Trinity in the sense of worship and adoration. And that's the problem text of Vatican II that started all this debate. That's why I keep referring to Vatican II.
Right. So what is it that is so fundamentally wrong about the Islamic conception of
Islam is predicated
God?
is predicated on the rejection of the deity of the Son, God as a father. You know that Islam teaches that God is not father, right? Allah is not father. It also teaches that Allah is the creator of evil. We could bring in other things that I think actually disqualify it from Swinburne's core attributes. Allah updates his knowledge. He's not omniscient.
Okay,
Hey,
so
Cameron, can you
let's
bring up
follow
my
up.
These are
Superman
positions
slide?
that exclude it from the common core argument, as Father Deacon mentioned at the beginning.
So, okay, one last follow up on that. So then why would any of that, given what I pointed out about the reference of the ease of reference and intentional action, why would even those severe errors about the nature of God make us think that Muslims fail to worship the God that they're attempting to worship, that they fail to adore the one true God?
I know this one.
I mean,
Jesus answers in John 4 to that. And he says to the woman at the well, I'm answering. The Samaritans are Unitarians. It's the same fundamental ontological position as Islam, right? They're Unitarian. Jesus says, you worship what you don't know. So the true sense here of what matters in terms of worship and adoration.
So she does worship it.
But the point is that she doesn't know it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. The resolution is
not intimately.
And that was the whole argument that I made. That's what I said. I said Jake knows the Trinity.
The resolution
Cameron,
of
can
the
you put up
debate
my
is
Superman
whether
slide?
Christians and Muslims. The resolution of the debate. Hold on. The resolution of the debate was whether Christians and Muslims worship the same God. If you concede that it's possible to worship the true God even without, in some sense, knowing Him, then you've just conceded the debate.
I'm not conceding that because the point of the passage is that the knowledge is not getting you anywhere. Islam is predicated on rejecting the Son, and as
what do you mean by getting anywhere? Getting anywhere in
So
terms of salvation? Because I agree with that. Who cares if they're getting anywhere in terms of salvation? That's not the resolution of the debate.
Adoration in Vatican II suggests that there's a pipeline that does attain to the object that it's acceptable, and that's why the popes go and pray in the mosques. That's so they're
no, that's not why any pope has ever paid in a mosque. That's not really
not why any
so
group.
silly.
No,
Okay.
it's not silly.
So
This is what. Can I share my screen right here to show you what I'm talking about?
Nope, not yet. Nope, not yet. It's my turn.
Nope.
So I did the courtesy of giving everybody syllogisms that summarize my argument in simple logical form. It's a courtesy, and it makes it an easy target. It allows you to say, I disagree with premise 1 or I disagree with premise 2. We did not get that from you. We got a hodgepodge of quotes and no logic connecting them together. Your argument appears to be, and if you've got a slide, otherwise correct me, the argument appears to be if two people attribute different essential properties to a subject term, they cannot refer to the same entity.
No,
the Superman argument blows that apart. The Superman argument blows it apart.
It's a
Makes no
specific
difference.
rejection of the referent. Is Islam
It's
predicated
irrelevant.
No, it's not. If it's predicated on rejecting that thing, then it's no longer referring to the worship and adoration of that thing. Jesus is being rhetorical.
You need it. What? Put it in a syllogism, Jay. Put it in a syllogism. You've got no logical connection between this. Yeah, you don't have to. If you did, you'd have an actual target.
Because the argument is about whether or not the worship is acceptable.
I dare you.
I don't
put it in a syllogism so we can evaluate it for logical.
All I have to do
you're
is
just hiding behind.
I came here.
A pile of quotes.
Listen, Screamer. I came here to demonstrate the magisterial contradictions, and I've already done that. You said that God can be worshipped as a demon and as the true God at the same time. You already made a
no, nobody ever said that. Nobody ever
said that.
Flag
the tape on that. Flag the tape on that. I'll give you $1,000 I'll give you $1,000 if you can find that on the tape. $1,000.
You said
Didn't
it was
have it.
both. You said it was both. You said
I said
that
an individual. I said an individual, like the Jews at times, could worship both the true God and a demon. And therefore, it is not the case that X
So it's
worships
not
a demon
it's not
entails
that,
X
that
doesn't worship
worship
God.
doesn't get you
It's
anywhere.
pure logic.
That worship
It's
doesn't
pure
get you
logic.
anywhere.
Learn it.
I'm
Take
not
a class.
arguing the logic. I'm arguing your dogmatic
I know you're not
contradiction.
arguing because it
Do
takes
your
logic
dogmas
to argue.
contradict?
That's why you're
Do
not
your
arguing.
dogmas contradict? Do your
Jay, can I
dogmas
just
contradict?
ask? Jay, can I just ask what you mean by it doesn't get you anywhere? What do you mean by that?
I argue that Vatican II's teachings contradict previous teachings. That's my argument.
No, just what do you mean by it doesn't get you anywhere?
No,
I just
that is
know what
my
that means.
argument. It doesn't. There's no salvific acceptance of God in that relationship.
Well, that's
Who
what we
cares?
think. That's what we think.
completely beside the point of the.
It's
of
not beside the
resolution.
point. My argument is that Vatican II contradicts the previous dogmas. That's my argument. That's what I came to argue.
What
If
does
you
that
want
argument
to-
have to do with the resolution of the debate and the title of the debate? I don't. what are
Worship
we
and
doing?
adoration that is accepted by God is what I'm arguing about. So you can argue something else, but who cares about
Well,
that?
then,
My point is that
then you're on
my
the.
point, listen,
Then you're
you
on
want
the
me to
whole
make the
channel.
point with? Can I put my slide back up to make why I'm making this point? My slide. The reason that this matters is that this is not an intellectual issue, believe it or not. This is a spiritual issue.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. I know that as a Thomist, you think that the problem is intellectual, but it's not. It's spiritual. So when the popes act on this Vatican II document that Muslims, Jews, and Christians all worship the same God, and they pray in the synagogues and the mosque towards Mecca, which according to Aquinas are actions of apostasy, that's my argument. You have an apostate papacy that you follow and that you defend. This is your spiritual tradition.
An argument has premises and a conclusion and inference rules.
Interrupt me.
You got no arguments.
This is the argument.
No arguments,
the argument is your dogma contradicts.
An argument has premises and conclusions.
The dogma contradicts. Does your dogma
Can I just ask
contradict?
another?
Does your dogma
Can I
not
just ask
contradict?
another?
So
Can
they
I just
can't
ask another clarifying
They
question?
can't answer the obvious contradiction between going into crusades and then now praying in the mosque towards Mecca. This is your problem.
No, because it's a false religion. It's a false religion.
Yeah, your religion is a false religion. Correct. The papacy is a false religion on the screen for you right there.
Papacy isn't a religion, bro.
You're the clown, dude. Your popes are praying in mosques.
Yeah, no, I'm laughing. All right. I'll pay you $100 if you can give me a syllogism on the spot.
You got fired for a sex scandal. You don't have $100 to pay out.
I love how Christopher and I raise our hands. Here, where are they at?
Let's hear from those guys for a while.